Good evening, everyone. My name is Raven Manygoats, and I'm a curatorial assistant in the Art of the Americas, and I worked closely with John Quick-to-See Smith, who curated Indigenous Identities Here, Now, and Always, which is on view at the Zimmerli Art Museum through December. I'm also a PhD candidate in the history department here at Rutgers, and my dissertation focuses on the role of women within the Red Power movement of the 1970s. Before beginning, I would like to acknowledge that the land on which I stand on right now is part of the ancestral lands of the Lenape people who were forcibly removed and lived throughout the United States and Canada in diaspora, including the three federally recognized nations in Oklahoma and Wisconsin. They are the Delaware Tribe of Indians, Delaware Nation, and the Stockbridge-Munsee community. We acknowledge that Rutgers University, like New Jersey and the United States as a nation, was founded upon the exclusions and erasures of Indigenous peoples. While we should acknowledge the Lenape's experiences of historical and contemporary disenfranchisement, we should also recognize and celebrate their perseverance and survival. I want to thank you all for joining us this evening, and a special thank you to Sonya Kelliher-Combs for joining us in our virtual Artist Talk series in support of the ongoing exhibition, Indigenous Identities Here, Now, and Always. The Zimmerli's operations, exhibitions, and programs are funded in part by Rutgers, the State University of New Jersey, and income from the Avenir Endowment Fund and the Andrew W. Mellon Endowment Fund, among others. Additional support comes from the New Jersey State Council of the Arts, Bloomberg Philanthropies, and the donors, members, and friends of the museum. For just a little background about Indigenous Identities, the exhibition was curated by John Quick-to-See Smith, and it marks her largest curatorial endeavor, with over 100 artworks across a range of media, from beadwork and jewelry to video and painting. The exhibition foregrounds the importance of identity in art making through the diverse practices of 97 artists, representing more than 50 distinct Indigenous nations from across North America. We are thrilled to have Sonya join us this evening and to have her work in the exhibition. You can view Remnant, Walrus Bone IV in our main exhibition space. After Sonya's discussion of her art practice, we will open up to questions from the audience. So please submit your questions in the Q&A function. So Sonya Kelliher-Combs is a mixed media visual artist from Alaska. She is Iñupiaq and Athabascan. Her work focuses on the changing North and our relationship to nature and to each other. Customary women's work taught her to appreciate the intimacy of intergenerational knowledge and material histories. These experiences and skills allow her to examine connections between Western and Indigenous cultures. Recent exhibitions include Arctic Amazon at Power Plant Gallery in Toronto, Canada, Agency Feminist Art and Power at the Museum of Sonoma County, California, and Hearts of Our People, Native Women Artists at the Minneapolis Institute of Art in Minnesota. Kelliher-Combs is a United States Artist Fellow, Native Arts and Cultures Fellow, Eiteljorg Fellow, and Joan Mitchell Fellow, among others. So I will now turn it over to you, Sonya.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it, Raven. And so I would like to begin by acknowledging the land on which I live, which is the traditional homelands of the Dena'ina, the Dena'ina people. And it's a great honor and to live in this beautiful place, which we call Anchorage, Alaska. Alongside that, I'd also like to thank Raven Manygoats and Brandon Truitt for inviting me to share a little bit about myself and about my practice. I would especially like to thank and remember the beautiful and amazing John Quick-to-See Smith for including me in Indigenous Identities Here, Now, and Always. It's a great honor to be showing with these artists in this major exhibition. I like to begin my talks always in a way that is customary to me and to my culture and to my family by sharing images of where I'm from and images of my family. It's very common for us to introduce ourselves and through our family and through place. So this first couple of images are from Nome, Alaska, where I grew up. I spent most of my childhood here and it was a great and beautiful place to grow up in. And we had a large family. We had 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and my parents and my grandparents that we spent our childhood. And we spent our entire summer at this cabin in Snow Gulch, which is just outside of Nome, Alaska. It's where we hunted, we gathered food, and we also were gold miners back in the day. And I always like to show this picture because my studio is kind of reminiscent with this tin on the outside of it, which you will see later. So it was a great place, as I said. It was where I learned to listen and listen to learn from family, community members, and nature. We had no running water. We had no generator. We hauled all of our water, and we had a wood stove where we cooked and prepared our foods. So here's a cute picture of my mom cutting up salmon. These are some of our foods that we gather and live off throughout the winters. Blueberries, this is sockeye salmon, and muktuk, which is a delicacy in many of our cultural groups in Alaska, which is the black and white down in the bottom left. It's bowhead whale skin and blubber. And then there's an image of moose hunting and processing. And we don't usually take images of hunting, but this is one I was able to find. My brother in that green hat there is actually now 40 years old. So it's a pretty old picture. So as Raven mentioned, the intimacy of customary women's work has allowed me to examine connections between Western and Indigenous cultures. And through observation and the practice of time-honored traditions like skin sewing, beading, and food preparation, I began to examine identity through my work. My undergraduate is from the University of Alaska Fairbanks. I went to graduate school at the Arizona State University, and it was being away that made me realize what was really important to me, which was my family, community, and where I'm from. So I am an artist of mixed descent, Iñupiaq from the North Slope of Alaska, Koyukon, Athabascan, or Dene from the interior, German, Danish, Scottish, and Irish, and my family, cultures, and relationship to the land influence all that I do. So I choose to live and work in Alaska. So on the left is my dad, Patrick Kelliher. He is first generation from Ireland. He's in that little tiny sled there with his mom and 2 brothers. And his dad came with the gold rush with his dad when he was a teenager. And they continued to go back and forth between Ireland and Alaska. And eventually my grandpa, Maurice Kelliher, went into the army and fought in World War II and brought my grandma, Peggy Kelliher, to Nome, where they raised their 3 boys. So on the right-hand side is my mom and that cute little girl. Her nickname is Dumplings, and her name is Trudy Hildebrand, and that is her adopted family. She was adopted by her aunt and uncle when her mother died from tuberculosis when she was a baby. And she was raised in the village of Nulato, which is a small village on the Yukon River. So on the left here is my mom, Trudy Kelliher, as a miner with my grandpa, Maurice Kelliher. And on the right is my dad, Patrick Kelliher, cleaning cloudberries. I'm adopted by Patrick Kelliher. The 4 oldest of us are adopted into the Kelliher family. And we have one of those nice complicated families. I'm lucky to have both a father and a dad. So this picture on the left is my father, James Stotts, and his wife, Caroline Heilman Stotts, who's from Greenland. He is my Iñupiaq side of the family. And on the right-hand side is my grandma, Mary Brower Stotts, and her brother, my great uncle, Harry Brower. And they're from Utqiagvik, formerly known as Barrow. I want to kind of point out they're wearing parkas adorned with walrus tusks forms by their neck. This is a pattern or an image that I use throughout most of my work, the Walrus family portraits, and it is also where the image I call secrets comes from. I also use a lot of objects, mostly utilitarian clothing objects in the work that I make. So I was telling Raven right before we began that I wanted to share that making art is only one facet of what I do. I curate, I volunteer, I make small utilitarian objects, I mentor, sometimes teach, and all of these keep me busy. These things are very important to my practice. I find that this kind of work fuels my visual art and helps to elevate the voices of other artists, in particular Indigenous artists. So at the beginning of my career after graduate school, I came back to Alaska, and I was lucky enough to be invited to curate in something called the Points of View series at our local museum at the Anchorage Museum, which is now a Museum of the North. And when I decided to do this, my intention was to address issues that were close to my heart. And in working on the exhibition, it became clear that with the items I selected and the way they were installed, they might speak softly about history, culture, family, and the life of our people, but collectively they could speak loudly about the abuse, marginalization, commodification, and struggle of our peoples of Alaska. My goal was to present a conceptual installation that was unconventional, a personal exploration of the transformative power of these utilitarian objects. So I gathered together objects that were similar in nature and installed them to create a conceptual conversation. In the foreground is a piece called Forgive You, Father of Sin, For You Have Sinned, and it is food bowls that are filled with plastic rosaries. So this piece is called Goodbye. It's one of several installations. It is a memorial to those who've lost their lives to suicide. It's one of the first times I addressed the issue of suicide. This personal and deeply wounding experience has affected nearly every person we know. Within this installation are 38 pairs of gloves and mittens representing those Alaska Natives who took their life by their own hands in 2005. This exhibition was in 2007, and that was the most recent statistic I could find at that time. Other programs that I really think are important and I support and participate in often deal with the passing of Indigenous knowledge, mentoring, and sharing. This is from a Material Traditions Gut workshop put on by the Smithsonian Arctic Studies Center, held at the Anchorage Museum. I was one of 3 master artists who taught this endangered art form to youth, college students, and other artists. On the left is fellow master artist Mary Iñupiaq. And on the right is Anna Gallagher, who taught me these endangered arts when I was a young aspiring artist. And she was from my home community, originally from St. Lawrence Island. I've continued to find inspiration in the objects and life ways of our ancestors. Studying these collections provides invaluable insight. And here I am with Art Iñupiaq and Nadia Jakinski-Setti at the Sheldon Jackson Museum. I was honored to be awarded a National Museum of the American Indian Artist Leadership Award, in which I was able to go and study in this collection. And then with the funding, I came back to Anchorage and was able to open up the doors to the Anchorage Museum and the Smithsonian Arctic Studies Center and share this great opportunity for our artists and culture bearers to have access to some of their historical objects. So for several years, I spent curating conversations at the Anchorage Museum. These conversations focused on issues important to contemporary and future circumpolar North, and in particular that of Indigenous people. This image is from our 3rd conversation, Culture of Commodity, Commodity of Culture. Included were moderator, curator Candace Hopkins, artist advocate and former dean of the Institute of American Indian Arts, Charlene Teeters, Greenlandic performance artist Yessi Kleeman, and Alaskan artist Nicholas Galanin. Other curated conversation topics included borders and boundaries, food security, Indigenous representation, and exhibiting culture. All of these culminated in the exhibition, which took place in Alaska, New Mexico, New York, and Norway. Without Boundaries, Visual Conversations. It opened in Anchorage and traveled to rural Alaska and to the Museum of Contemporary Native Art in Santa Fe. And it was a great opportunity to bring together like-minded people from really far distances. You can see the list of artists at the bottom of this image. Super honored to be able to share their work and also to bring these artists together, and our moderators and art historians and culture bearers. So the cocoon-shaped patterns, we'll talk about my work now. I feel like I'm talking really fast, but so these are the guarded secrets. And remember that shape I showed you that my grandma had on her parka? It's a direct link to this pattern or form that I use. So these are based on the same Inuit or Iñupiaq walrus tusk trim design. The designs were placed on either side of the neck in front of one's parka. They were meant to empower the wearer. This shape for me is metaphorical for a secret. A secret is by definition something hidden, unspoken, repressed, and kept unknown. Guarded Secrets is a series revealing the protected secret, one shielded from the outside and one fortified from the inside. There's some more of these pouch forms. Common thread speaks to shared heritage and community, the passing on of generations, traditions, and culture. A single thread connects these pouch forms. Similar but not the same, they remind us of the individual that makes up the whole. It is a simple but beautiful idea. We all share common DNA. We are all connected. And I also want to point out, I've done a number of series based on the shades of skin. And so these were specifically chosen with different shades of skin, different shapes and sizes, and different colors. So idiot strings, the things we carry. So this is a series I've been making for quite some time now. A lot of these are ongoing series that I continue to build upon. I probably made 8 sets of idiot strings in this 3-dimensional form. Some are smaller. This is kind of a larger one. It's 50 pairs of idiot strings. Idiot strings originated as a memorial to the loss of 3 uncles who tragically took their own lives. 3 men who suffered from the experience of boarding school, the Vietnam War, and abuse of the clergy. Idiot strings are the tethers that hold one's mittens, and many of us in the North know what these are. These works draw attention to the staggering elevated rates of suicide amongst Alaska Native and Native American peoples. Alaska Natives are 3 times more likely to take their life than the rest of the nation. In both material and form, these pouches and ties evoke the body and suggest its absence. Casting overlapping shadows through line and movement demonstrate that one loss touches many. We must always remember those whom we've lost and continue to heal from the historical traumas of colonization. These works have evolved to encompass not only personal tragedy, but also a wider sense of collective loss, today more poignant than ever. The one thing about the idiot strings that is important is that when you move through the room, these objects move as well, and the shadows move around. Light, shadow, and movement are important in my work. So this is a piece called Black and White. Black and White is a comment on our new subsistence. As a child, I grew up always knowing that the land would provide. New ideas about what that means abound. The imagery is inspired by muktuk, that combination of whale blubber and skin, common food for our people. The stitched synthetic skin is adorned with glass trade beads and human hair. The kupuks, or the patterns at the bottom of them, are from Iñupiaq parka trim and Athabascan parka trim. Each muktuk strip is hung over a glass canning jar filled with used motor oil. 3 generations of Alaskans have worked on the North Slope of Alaska, extracting oil to feed and house their families. We live in a paradoxical world, relying on both the Western economic model through an Indigenous worldview. It is not black and white. It's not a black and white world. A new subsistence exists, our dependence on the extraction of oil. This is called Blue Cord, Blue Aeon. This piece is from the Plastic Gyre, which was an exhibition that began as an expedition. It was an expedition to collect garbage on the coasts of Alaska. Growing up in rural Alaska with Alaska Native values, it is an unspoken truth. You take care of all that you harvest. You respect and honor what provides for you, your family, and community. You take care of each other. Today, I wonder what has gone so wrong that our shores are filling with the waste of others. Alaska Natives are innovative people, recycling discarded items, sharing used materials, never throwing away something that might be needed by another. I think this is wonderful and beautiful. It was a good way to grow up, and I'm proud of being from a place that takes care of the land and nature. So this is Remnant. This installation was in Site Santa Fe in 2016. Sightlines Biennial. Remnant is a series meant to comment on the threatened state of the natural world of Alaska, a location where the folly of our human-centric approach to industry is achingly clear. Within these works, the viewer is surrounded by fragments and scraps of the world of the North. Bits and pieces of animal hide, hair, clothing, and other detritus submerged in synthetic media like so many specimens from a way of life that no longer exists. Remnant invites the viewer into a dialogue that exposes the tenuousness of our own existence. And here are two close-ups of Remnant. And on the right-hand side is the piece that's included at the Zimmerli Art Museum. It's in the Gotchman collection. So this piece is Red Curl 2, and there's a similar piece right now at the ICA in Boston, in the exhibition there, and it'll be up for a while. So if you guys get to Boston, it's on Jeffrey Gibson's exhibition there, an Indigenous present. So Red Curl 2, a wall installation comprised of repeating sculptures, is made from a combination of synthetic and natural materials. These forms mimic strips of cold-drying sockeye salmon. The shape is loosely based on Iñupiaq parka sleeve patterns. Like the repetitive tasks of working on the land, the process of producing art is intimate and meditative. Red Curl is open-ended, allowing the spirit of the fish to return for future harvest. Use of repetitive forms is common in my work, each individual a part of the whole, metaphorical for our relationship to each other and the natural world. So this is Polar Bear Curl, and this piece is on display in Shifting Landscapes at the Whitney Museum. And that exhibition is open until January of 2026. This is called Mark. It's from a series called Mark, Polar Bear and Walrus. Mark is a series commenting on both the endangered state of the natural world of Alaska and beyond. A mark is a symbol used for identification or indication of ownership. A mark is a visible impression or trace on something as a line, dent, stain, or bruise. It is a badge, brand, or other visual sign assumed or imposed. And lastly, it is a sign, banner, and dividing line. This body of work is a commentary on the Western culture's need for consumption and control, often at odds with the value system of Indigenous perspectives. And here's another from that same series. So a lot of times my work is kind of a little less easy to read, but this series, Credible, is a series that began first with Forgive You, Father, for you have sinned. Credible is capable of being believed, convincing, worthy of belief, trustworthy. It's a series addressing the overwhelming abuse of the Catholic Church in the state of Alaska, and it continues that same series I've been exploring since 2007. These paintings represent the 35 villages that have what is considered credible claims of abuse by the hands of those who were sent to save them. Below each work, or next to the body of work, is a list of those accused. This information was generously shared by reporter Kyle Hopkins from the Anchorage Daily News. His research was obtained from Jesuits West and supplemented with a report by the Catholic Diocese of Fairbanks that lists all known individuals, including priests, religious, lay employees, and volunteers, against whom a complaint of sexual abuse has been filed by one or more individuals, and against whom the abuse has been proven, admitted, or credibly accused. So here's one of those pieces, a detail. An important part of the installation of Credible is the label text. Credible Holy Cross illustrates the rampant abuse of the Catholic Church in our villages. With a population of 220 people, 16 predators were left unchecked over a period of 40 years. These are the credible claims the Church acknowledges. We all know there are many more victims in our villages whom have died of countless diseases, mental illness, suicide, alcoholism, and drug abuse before this information came to light. So I told you I do a lot of curating as well. So I wanted to share a recent exhibition curatorial project that I did. This is called Visceral Verity, Legacy, Identity, where I was invited alongside Ellen Carley, who's a conservator at our Alaska State Museum in Juneau. And this exhibition took place at the State Museum in 2023. It was a 3+ year collaboration with conservator Ellen Carley. It began before COVID and culminated in 3 interrelated exhibitions, which explored contemporary and historical Alaska Native issues, spotlighting gut as a material used to express Indigenous voices. So Visceral Verity, it was a solo exhibition of my mixed media work using natural and synthetic materials. These works draw attention to questions of authentic experience, truth, abuse, transparency, and credibility. In Visceral Legacy, which is the next gallery over, co-curator Ellen and myself further explored these themes through historical objects chosen from the collections in museums across Alaska. Legacy is a gift by will, especially of money or personal property, something transmitted by or received from an ancestor or predecessor or from the past. So as I mentioned before, the opportunity to experience these collection is a rare gift. And like many museums and cultural institutions around the world, the State Museum is a treasure trove of history, culture, art, and beauty. And like many, only a sampling can be on display at any one time. We spent many hours visiting with these precious objects to highlight works that speak to technology, connection to material, and most importantly, the perseverance and resilience of Alaska Native cultures. So legacy resilience is the power of or ability of a material to return to its original form or position, the ability of a person to adjust and recover readily from illness, adversity, major life changes. So these 35 vessels were historically used in the gathering, preparation, and storage of foods and materials. In some of the vessels, the sustenance has been replaced by plastic rosaries. This installation builds on my series, Forgive Ye, Father, for You Sinned. Contemporary Alaska Native people have experienced both positive and negative exposure to religion, have lived with historical trauma as well as loss of identity. These vacancies are often replaced by negative life patterns, including addiction, suicide, violence, and mental illness. This installation is for those who have suffered the wounds of abuse by the clergy and the church. The traumas have become intergenerational, affecting multiple generations. It is hard to talk about these issues, but it is important to allow space and dialogue for healing and recovery of all that has been taken through the traumas of colonization. And here's a detail of one of those pieces. So these last images I will go through quickly to show you recent work over the last couple of years. This is a piece that is in the collection of Union College, and it's Small Secrets, Sheldon Jackson. This is a piece that's in the Gotchman collection, Credible with Red. And you can see how sometimes I do 3-dimensional pieces and then also explore 2-dimensionally. So I wanted wanted to share that. So these are red, white, and blue buried secret portraits. These are in the collection of the Terra Foundation. And I've done credible red, white, and blue secrets also. And then I've also done credible or red, white, and blue idiot strings too. So I'm exploring it in multiple formats. So here is small red, white, and blue secrets in 3-dimension. These are hair and fur secret portraits, which are all sorts of natural materials from animals, fish, birds, and humans to create these portraits. These will be included in an exhibition called Sovereign Stitches, opening at McCord University in 2026. And then this is the last of my of the work. This is Peach and Blue Secrets. I think they're maybe 6 feet by not quite 6 feet, 5 feet maybe. And then I wanted to show an image of my studio. This is just to show you that tin and how beautiful the rain is on the tin, and how this is over 100-year-old tin on the siding of this space. And I wanted to thank you for your time and allowing me to share. And I wanted to end with a picture of my honey, Sean, and our 2 lovely fur babies. And this is Mia and Bo, and I want to say Kuyana Anabasi. And then I also want to mention I have a publication that just came out just under a year ago, which surveys my work. It's like a mid-career monograph, and that's Mark, which is out there somewhere. So I can allow for questions now. Thank you, Raven.
Great. Thanks so much, Sonya. Let me just adjust the screen here so we can see each other.
Okay. Do you want me to stop share?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see if I can get up there. There we go.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. Now we can see each other. Thanks so much for sharing with us. That was great.
I thought I was talking too quickly.
No.
I just want to make sure we had time for questions. I hope people aren't afraid. Sometimes I think I scare people.
Yeah, anyone feel free to put your questions in the chat. But I wanted to share that I saw idiot strings at the Hudson River Museum over the summer.
Oh,
And
nice.
it was really breathtaking to see, and that was my first time seeing them in person, and it was amazing to see how they interact with the space, like you were saying, and the shadows they cast. It was really moving.
I got to figure out how I can put a video of that so that people can actually experience it, because it's what I really love is when people walk by it and then like their movement moves them. It's really
it's really amazing. I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about working with gut, because it seems like such an interesting material, and I also wonder how you learned to work with it.
Sure. Well, I first started working probably like considering it as a material when I was in graduate school at Arizona State. I brought a bunch of material with me just to make me feel at home. And I just hung them in the studio. I just had them around, things like sealskin and gut and moose hide and other, like my beading stuff. Because, if you grew up in an Indigenous family, a lot of times people are beading and making things. And so I brought stuff with me to do that when I wasn't doing other stuff. And I hadn't actually learned how to process until after my first year of graduate school. I'd, been around it and made things out of it. But when I went back, I found Anna Gloggergan, the woman who I showed you her image earlier. And I asked our good friend, my good friend, and her mom was like, no, you got to go and find one of those St. Lawrence Island people to do it. Because my mom is Athabascan and they didn't use that. They use like moose heart pericardium and other things. But and since my father and her had gotten divorced, I didn't have access to that material directly. So I learned how to do it, and we tried to do it. I tried to do it by myself, and my sister was helping me. And then we found Anna, and she laughed at us, and she quickly sewed up all of the holes we made in it. And then we sourced a walrus stomach from our neighbor. Normally, like a walrus stomach is used for a drum or to carry like food or store water and things like that. It was like a sack, and that's why when I showed you that image of all those bags filled with those rosaries, like it was like meant to hold food, not to hold, to be replaced by the church. The relationship between where the nature, which is a part of where our religion comes from, is our relationship to each other and the land and the animals. So yeah, I made that correlation to use the sustenance bags. But yeah, it's a beautiful, amazing material. It's got this natural light, and it changes. It's like it's a living material because with humidity and cold, and it'll move. It'll, which I think is really beautiful. It could also be used like a window covering before we had access to things like glass.
Yeah. Yeah, it is a really interesting material because it's almost like a shield, but it's also, you can see through it also.
Yeah,
It makes for an interesting, I don't know, I'm really struck by it.
Yeah,
Amazing to
it's a
see.
beautiful material. How I started using it directly is I would like stretch a little piece on a frame, and then I started doing this gel medium technique that is synthetic paint skin basically, and I would emulate it, and I would hang them right next to each other. And then eventually the material wasn't so precious, so I was able to begin to integrate them together and have that kind of, commentary about the synthetic and the natural.
Wow.
Which I didn't say anything about the red curl piece that looks like salmon drying, but
Right.
that's also a commentary about the microplastics that are getting into our food supply, and all of us have microplastics in our body now. And it's even acknowledged at the CDC that, DNAs are changing, and, we're trying to modify fish. So they are modifying fish so that their life cycle is a third of what a normal life cycle of a salmon is. So those are the things I'm thinking about when I'm making some of this work.
Yeah. Okay, we do have a question sort of related to this. So for your pieces that use parts like hair and animal parts, do you need to preserve or store them in a specific way to maintain their quality?
Just depending on how I use them in the work, like the hair pieces that are directly stitched and stuff. I hate to say this, it's all archival, right? That's what they always ask you, is it archival? But I kind of have to let the conservators worry about that stuff when it's something like polar bear fur when it's been completely embedded in some of those paintings, it's encased in plastic. So it's been prepared. Most everything has been either tanned, so it's been processed in such a way that all of the flushing and taking away all the oils and stuff, they're gone, but there's still some critters who will want to eat it if it's exposed. And so that's just something like my mucklucks, all my fur garments, we freeze them every year to make sure that there aren't any critters in them, and that's something you have to do. You have to freeze them for 2 weeks to make sure that if there are any little microbes or whatever they are that are trying to eat your fur, that you take care of them. So as far as with the painting and such, yeah, those are mostly encased. The things that are more on the surface, you just got to watch them and take care of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I have a conservative friend I can ask for those.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, we have another question from Camilla. Has anyone from the Catholic Church responded to any of your work?
It's so crazy. When I first did that first installation in 2007, I didn't know anything about the internet. I have to admit that I'm really terrible at technology. And a friend of mine had Googled me, or like she wanted this specific image and I didn't have an image. And I said, well, how'd you get that image? And she said, oh, I just found it on the internet. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. So she showed me how to do it. So then I spent like an afternoon Googling myself, and it was terrible and terrifying at the same time. But I found this blog that this woman from the Catholic Church had written about that show Consensus, the curated show I did from the collection, the very first one. And she just was going on and on about there are no priests that are abusing children in Alaska, blah, 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 all this stuff. And I was so upset couldn't really respond at the beginning. And finally I sent an article that had just come out after my exhibition about the rampant abuse, historical abuse of the Catholic Church in our communities. And she would not hear it. And after that, I was just like, oh, I can't do this. But because it's really upsetting. And I had been considering to do this work for a long time. And I really felt like I needed to talk to my family about it, because I was not directly impacted, but I'm indirectly impacted because I have many relatives who have lived through this, and some have not. But so I got the blessing that I needed from, my relatives, and I started to really engage in this conversation. And I just found out that there's this beautiful exhibition at the Alaska Native Heritage Center that is about boarding schools. And I have a piece from the Credible series there. And one of the curators and this amazing guy, Ben Jasek, who's doing all this research, he's working on his PhD. They have this timeline that is a living, it's called a counting court. It's a living exhibition. So they keep on adding to it as they find more information about these institutions. And he said the Catholic Church came and looked at the exhibition, and the one request they made is that they take down my piece. So he said, I would consider that a really good thing if they want to remove your piece. So that's probably, I was raised in the Catholic Church. My mom is from a village that has a lot of problems because it's a Catholic village, Not anymore. There's all the denominations are everywhere, but yeah, it's a good question though. They haven't wanted to interview me or anything, but
yeah. It must be so difficult working with these dark histories, especially when it's directly impacted your family. Like that's difficult work to be doing, but also so important to be sharing.
Yeah, I know that we are not the only ones.
Oh yeah.
And it's not just Indigenous communities. So we know that it's worldwide. We know that it's not, the true history of colonization throughout the world is what we need to talk about. We need to tell the true history of these things. Like people think none of this ever happened, that it's all made up. And they keep on saying, why can't you just get over it? But they don't understand that it's intergenerational, that it continues to, these traumas continue to stay with us because we aren't able to express them and move through them. And it's like it's a big scar that we need to
reckon with. And
yeah, exactly.
Okay, we have another question from Brandon. He says, thanks so much for the wonderful talk. I'd love to hear more about Remnant on display at the Zimmerli and the interactive process of your art making. Can you say more about working through an idea in a series? Do you want your artworks in a series to experience separately or in unison?
That's a good question. Sometimes I let them be separated. Like with Remnant, I've done many of those, and some stay together and some become individuals. It's like the idea of one who's a part of a community, like a family. So sometimes they're sold in sets, and sometimes they are individuals. But I don't know about I feel like ever since I started this work with secrets, I can't let it go because there's just so much to think about with regards to secrets. Not all secrets are bad, but that shape and that form continues to come back to me. And as far as working in series, I guess I feel like maybe one day I'll wake up and I won't want to do whatever the series is, like the remnants. Like I have some large bones that I want to do, pieces with, and I'm starting these new series called New Artifact, taking found things and talking about who determines what is precious or commodified, like Western culture has commodified a lot of our historical objects and given value to them and grave robbed them and done all sorts of things to them, that I'm like, let's take that back. Let's think about why, and who is determining what is important in our material culture and monetized it. And so I guess as far as like the series, I'll play with an idea for a while. I'm like when I was thinking about the Remnant series, and it's definitely related to the Mark series and to another series that I do called Brand, which is actually like shaving into and burning onto natural materials and stretching them, constricting them to the specific format in a frame or framed, and then imprinting them with, other things, grommets, shaving. They're all circles, like unified circles. And that's also similar to the same thing. It's about Western culture's need to control. And it also deals with borders and boundaries and all those things too. But so I don't know if I answered the question or not, but it's definitely, I continue to explore in all sorts of different formats. I did one video thing, but I had somebody help me do that. It was the population of the Alaska state map through time of all of the priests and where they moved around to, and how it just populated.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was a interesting kind of like a experiment and like showing how they just move them around to all these communities. So when you look at the whole list of the perpetrators, and they've come from down south too, from other populations up to Alaska. It's like where they sent all their dirty secrets. But yeah.
Wow. Okay, one last question from Melinda. Wonderful presentation of your work. Can you talk a bit more about the work Black and White?
Sure. Yeah, that piece was included in an exhibition called True North. And I just wanted to do a piece that was not about the idealized North, and also to talk about something that, like there's always this outside view of Alaska and of Indigenous people here and of the North in general. And I wanted to make a commentary that people are like, well, you guys should stop drilling oil and do this and do that and all of this. And yes, we should. And yes, it would be great if we could. But it's places like Utqiagvik or Barrow are the most expensive places to get to, most expensive places to live in. And there's only so many jobs there, and people have been there for millennia, but you can't go all the way backwards. You can't just, you can try. There has to be other infrastructure. And I just, when people would be just saying this stuff to me, and I'm like, it's more complicated than that. It's so complicated and it's actually 4 generations now that have been, living and working and, for these companies that come up there and are extracting oil. So there has to be other ways of creating energy. And I mean, they're trying, in my community, they got windmills. They last for a little while, but yeah, it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that's what that piece is about.
Mhm.
Um, and it's, it's a sad thing. It's kind of similar to like the pieces I'm doing with the gut vessels that are being replaced by these rosaries. It's a similar thing. It's like our food is, like there's, there's a disconnect between, this, we're still living, trying to harvest and do all the things. Some communities have something called subsistence leave where we get to go hunting and berry picking, but a lot of them don't. So you have to find ways to, be in the land and do your customary practices.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated. I mean, the resource extraction on native lands that it happens throughout this country, and
Yeah.
kind of blaming people for working there when they're
Yeah,
just trying to survive.
exactly. And
Yeah.
this whole thing about we only have surface rights in
Mhm.
Alaska. And
Mm,
I think many of our on native lands where they're extracting, they sent a lot of people to the shittiest places, but that's where a lot of the natural resources are.
yeah.
So now they're coming back and trying to find their way in there,
Yeah.
after they've relocated people many places.
Mhm.
We are lucky that it wasn't quite as extreme here in Alaska, but
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Sonia, for this talk. It
yeah,
was
I
really
really,
wonderful to hear
yeah,
more
good
about your work.
questions, everybody.
Yeah, those were
And
great questions. So
yeah,
thank you. And
yeah,
let me just highlight some other events that we have coming up. So on Thursday, we have Bentley Spang's Techno Powwow from 5 to 8. Then we also have a panel on curating Indigenous art with Candace Hopkins,
nice.
Jamie Powell and Laura Evans on November 13th, a public reading with Natalie Diaz on November 19th, and a performance by Laura Ortman on December 4th. So everyone should check out our website and
That's so
register for the
great.
event.
You're so lucky.
Yeah, we're really
Awesome.
excited. So it'll be fun.
Yeah,
But thank you so
fantastic.
much, Sonia.
Thank you, Raven.
And
Okay.
thank you all for joining this evening and take care, everyone.